We're now joined by our guest, Nichola Jones, Communications Coordinator for Middle East Crisis at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for taking the time talking to us. Now, how would you assess the severity of the humanitarian situation in Gaza?
I think, as your correspondent just rightly outlined in his report from the south, bombardments are ongoing. The situation remains catastrophic for the people of Gaza. And the situation today is no different from the situation yesterday and for the preceding 15 months. You know, people are living in constant fear and they're living without even the most basic of supplies. So 9 out of 10 people in Gaza rely on humanitarian support. They're not able to access that support right now. We're not able to bring in the level of support and aid and emergency supplies that we wish we were able to do. Our colleagues at the Palestine Red Crescent Society in Gaza are working to provide emergency healthcare. They have ambulances, they have paramedics, and they're doing what they can to meet the immediate emergency needs of people who've been wounded or who are injured. But in general, the situation there is dire. People are living in makeshift tents in the rubble. And we've also seen in recent weeks not only the fear of attacks and the constant violence, but also the weather. We've seen flooding in some of those makeshift camps, which means the little that people have in terms of shelter and their own belongings has been washed away and destroyed as well.
And from your observation, what are the most pressing issues facing the people of Gaza now as we speak?
It's very difficult to say what is the most pressing when in a situation like this, people have lost everything and are unable to access even the most basic of support. But what we do know is that people need food. There is massive food insecurity and a risk of famine in Gaza. People need shelter. They have nowhere to live and there is no safe place in Gaza. I think that's one of the most important things to underline, that until there is a ceasefire and until there is lasting peace, there is no safety in Gaza for families, for children, for anybody. People really need to be able to access healthcare. We are waiting to be able to transport more medical supplies and medicines in. You know, the reality in Gaza is that there is no electricity, there is no clean water, there is no power, there are no roads. This basic infrastructure has been damaged and eroded over the last 15 months. And so the challenge faced to the people is huge. And the challenge faced to us in order to be able to support them is also massive. But we're preparing in the advent of the ceasefire coming into effect that we will be able to work with Palestine Red Crescent and bring in even more aid to the people who need it the most.
And what seem to be the major obstacles for humanitarian aid to enter Gaza?
It's a good question. I mean, the borders have been restricted in their access to the north and to the south of Gaza since the last months. It's been very difficult for aid from any organisation, including the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, to transport emergency supplies in. So the borders have been largely closed and heavily restricted. The Rafah border, which is a crossing from Egypt, is one of the main kind of critical arteries for the transference of aid into Gaza, and that has been closed since May last year. We hope that with the advent of a ceasefire agreement, that there will be greater access for us, and so that transportation of goods will be able to happen from those border points in Egypt and in Jordan. But we don't know exactly what the next few hours or days or weeks will bring in terms of access. But what we hope is that it will improve for us. And we've been calling from that as the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent since the beginning, because if we can't access and we can't transfer much needed supplies to the people, then we can't provide the life-saving support that we are mandated to provide. There are other challenges connected as well to the situation in Gaza, because if access is improved, what we are then contending with on the other side within Gaza is, like I mentioned earlier, the damage to the infrastructure. Warehouses where you would normally store supplies have been destroyed and damaged. Roads that you use to transport in aid have been destroyed and damaged, and the needs are completely overwhelming. So you can imagine that there is a lot for us in the whole humanitarian sector to navigate here. But we are coordinating all together in order that we can try to meet some of these challenges and overcome them to provide the best level of support we can for the people in Gaza.